Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back. My name is Miriam and today I'm doing an unhaul. So I have a bit of a problem. I'm the type of person that wants to keep every single book. As soon as I buy a book, I just have that mentality of this is my book. Even if I don't like it, I don't want to get rid of it. But I don't have enough space on my shelves in my room, and so I've decided to get rid of books that there is no way I would ever reread them if I have read them, or they're just books that I've lost interest in, whether that's losing interest in a subgenre, or I've tried a book by the author, decided the author's not for me, so I'm getting rid of the books that I have by that author. But I really do struggle with parting with my books. I want to keep them all, but I have collected, I think, around 20 books that I will be getting rid of. So it is a mix. I have books where I had read one of them by the author, decided I'm going to get rid of all the books by that author because they're just not for me. There are a couple that I actually really enjoyed, but again, I will never reread those books for various reasons. I have some books that I DNF'd and I'm just not interested at all. And then surprisingly, I'm actually unhauling a few classics, which never thought that that would be the case for me. So I'm going to start off with the classics that I'm unhauling. And first we have the Aeneid by Virgil. So I went through a phase where I bought every single classic that I saw at my local thrift store. And now I kind of regret it because I'm really not into Greek myth, and I just bought a bunch of Greek myth books. I also went through a phase where I thought that Greek myth was pretty awesome, but I've come to realize that it's just not something that I gravitate towards. And considering all the books that I want to read, I need to be able to say no to certain books, and unfortunately I'm just not interested. I'm not interested in the Iliad, the Odyssey, like anything like that. It just doesn't sound interesting to me, so I'm getting rid of the Aeneid. And in a similar vein, I also got two other Penguin Black Spines that I'm unhauling, and the first is Lysistrata. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's by Aristophanes, and this is a collection of plays. And again, I'm just not really interested in, ancient Greece, the classics. And I actually did try to read some of the plays from these collections, and I just wasn't enjoying them. So I'm not gonna force myself if I don't enjoy it. So these books are also going to be leaving my home. The next classic that I'm going to be getting rid of is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. And I did mention that I don't want to read this in my anti-TBR video. I just don't want to read about whales. I don't want to read this massive tome about whales and whaling, and it just doesn't sound good. So this is not going to be read, I don't think, ever. So I don't see the point in keeping it. But that's Moby Dick. Next, I have some historical fiction that I'm unhauling, and I actually did try reading all three. The first one is one that I DNF'd last month, and that's Daughter of Cana by Angela Hunt. Unfortunately, the characters in this book just did not grab my attention. I actually found them to be very irritating. It surprised me, honestly, because Angela Hunt is one of my favorite authors. I have multiple books by her. Like, she's great. I love her historical fiction, but I don't know. This one just wasn't it for me. Next up, we have The King's Mercy by Laurie Benton. This was the first Laurie Benton book I've ever tried, and it's like a romantic historical fiction. The writing style just really prevented me from wanting to continue on with the book. I had read a few chapters and I just wasn't jiving with the style, so I'm gonna be getting rid of this. And honestly, I have so many other historical fiction books that I want to read that I don't even feel guilty about this one. Next up, we have one that I actually hauled just a couple months ago, and that's Russian Winter by Daphne Kalite. I was drawn to this book because it was described as like a mystery surrounding this older woman who, back in the earlier 20th century, she used to be a ballerina. She ended up like auctioning off a ton of her jewels. There's this whole mystery surrounding why she did that, why she left Russia and moved to the United States. And I don't know, it just sounded pretty intriguing to me, but I wasn't connecting with the characters. Yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it, and will be unhauling it. So this next book is one that I read in January and had such mixed feelings about, but I've decided that this author's not for me. And so I'm going to be getting rid of both of the books that I have by her. So the first one is One by One by Ruth Ware. And then we have The Death of Mrs. Westaway, also by Ruth Ware. I'll link both my January wrap-up and my anti-TBR video because I do talk a little bit more about One by One and why I had such a weird experience reading it. And I'm finding more and more that a lot of the thrillers that I read, I just don't enjoy them. And maybe I need to kind of discover more of what I personally like in thrillers, because I'm always intrigued by the premise, especially when it has to do with like kind of like a closed circle mystery and people start dying off. But I don't know, like besides Agatha Christie and a few other authors, I just get disappointed time and time again. So if you guys have any recommendations for authors or books that I should check out as a fan of Agatha Christie, I would definitely appreciate it. Next up is another thriller that I actually gave 5 stars to, but this is one of those books where I've read it once, I won't be rereading it, I don't think ever. So I'm okay getting rid of it. That way I'll have more space on my shelves. And that book is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This was pretty popular a few years ago when it came out and pretty hyped up, and I had really low expectations going into it. But honestly, I was hooked. I loved this book from cover to cover. It's definitely not a perfect book, but as I read it, I was so immersed into the story and wanting to know what the heck was gonna happen. So I did really, really enjoy this, but again, I'm not gonna reread it. I generally don't reread thrillers, so I'm okay getting rid of this book. Next up, I have Agatha Raisin and the Quiche of Death, and this is the first book in the Agatha Raisin series. I read this for Cloak and Dagger Christmas back in December, and while I did enjoy it, I just don't feel connected enough to Agatha Raisin as a character. I don't think this is the type of series for me, and again, I don't mind getting rid of this book because I'm not going to reread it. I'm not going to read any other books in the series as of now, so I will be getting rid of this one as well. So these next 2 books are both books that I read in February, so I will be talking more about my thoughts on the books in my February wrap-up. So I'm just going to quickly mention them, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely and A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. My overall thoughts on these 2 books, they're okay. I'm not very well read in YA fiction, but as I read more, it's becoming more and more apparent that a lot of the characters, a lot of the plot lines are very predictable, very, very similar in terms of characterization, and these aren't bad books by any means. I only read the second one because I wanted to know what happened to one particular character, but I'm just finding more and more that YA is really not my cup of tea necessarily, unless it's something very unique and original. So these books were okay. I didn't love them. I have no interest in reading the third in the trilogy. And so these will go to a new home, to someone who will read them and love them, because I didn't. Okay, so the last 2 books are actually not in the room. I have no idea where I put them, but that's okay. I'm getting rid of them anyway. And that's Agatha. And the second book, I don't even remember what it was called, but I will put the picture here. So the first and second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I'm sad because I really liked the first book, but I have a line and it like crossed that line with certain things. Y'all can watch my anti-TBR video where I talked about it, but I just don't like when a relationship is so physical and so focused on the physical attraction. There was literally nothing else that I could see that made the main relationship, the main love thing, beautiful. The plot was really good. I actually really enjoyed Feyre as a character. Her whole character arc was great, but just not the types of books that I want to be reading. So I will not be keeping them. Sorry if you guys like Agatha. I know I sound like a prude. I promise I'm not, but it's just not for me. So those are the books that I'm getting rid of. I'm actually really proud of myself for picking them off my shelves and not keeping them. I'm proud because this isn't something I easily do. So this was definitely a shorter video. I just wanted to quickly talk about each of the books that I'm going to be getting rid of, and not a very exciting video, but anyways, I have just been rambling. This video is going to be interesting, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys all have an amazing rest of your day, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.